Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's currently 10 p.m. and I'm finally recording the second part of the TvZ video that I made 2 weeks ago. Sorry for the delay. It's honestly been a huge struggle, mostly because I just simply don't play any Zergs. I'll put a screenshot of how many TVPs I've played since I released that video, or this season rather. But yeah, it's just been mostly TVPs. If I did get a TvZ, I was actually getting cheesed early on, and it wasn't really what I was trying to capture for the video. But I finally got us a pretty clean, clear TvZ. And of course, what we're going to focus on today is going to be the mid game for part 2. So we're going to breeze by the introduction here at the beginning. I'll go ahead and emphasize a couple of things from the last video again, just to get a refresher on that and explain certain decisions and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be entirely based on the mid game. So maybe I shouldn't do that. Because I don't know, I could just give you guys a freaking motion sickness or something. So a little bit of early pull Zerglings across the map. Nothing crazy here. Lost a Marine, not that big of a deal. I'm playing 3 command centers, so this is a 3 command center opener. I believe in the last video, it might have been a 2cc Banshee video. This is going to be a 3cc Banshee video, so it's going to be, the build order is going to be different. But all the key concepts will still be the same. So if you want to try this build, definitely feel free to. It's not a bad build at all, but it is going to be a different start, I suppose. So I do fake cloak. I go for 2 Banshees. Pressure with some Hellions, as you guys know. Started just rotating around. I spot some roaches, but I have the Banshees, so I'm not really worried about that at all. We're going double eBay here, double racks. We're going for 1-1, landing our 3rd. Banshees are doing Banshee things, which are pressuring. And then here, we're going to get to that first early game push timing. This, of course, doesn't always happen, right? Kind of just depends on what's going on in the game. In this particular case, I wasn't really aiming to do a huge +1 push, especially with my opponent playing early roaches. And as you can see, he's getting ready for it as well as he starts 10 roaches in the production tab. So I'm going to instead, emphasize creep spread and drops. So what you're going to see here now is how I pretty much approach the mid game when I'm starting from a position where either like nothing has really happened in the game, I haven't gotten a huge advantage at all, or maybe I just haven't met the right conditions to do a 1-1 push at 7:30. Okay, so we all know the 7:30 1-1 push. In this particular case, like I said, I didn't do that. So what do? Well, first, I'm going to clear creep. As soon as I don't have the opportunity, let's say, to do that super simple, common 1-1 push with the 2 tanks and some Marines, medevacs, maybe Hellions as well, I shift my timing to 2-2. So this is why, it's always going to be important to get your upgrades on time, but it's especially important to get 2-2 upgrades on time because it opens up such a big timing for you to hit, especially if you macro very well. You could hit 10 minutes, even sub 10-minute timing where you're either maxed out or nearly maxed out, and you can just kind of end the game with a big push. If you don't like playing late game TvZ, this is really the best way to go about it. But there are a couple of things you need to do leading up to that push to be able to have the best conditions to win with said push. Okay, ignoring obviously micro mistakes or positioning or maybe unit compositions, stuff like that. So the first thing we can do here is just clear creep. Super simple stuff. We all know that. Okay, so if you know you're going to attack through a certain place ahead of time, that does help. So me, for example, I knew that I was going to go down here through the middle to be as aggressive as possible. So I decided to emphasize killing creep there. But as you can see, putting on the pressure, just pick up, fly away. Obviously, it's going to be a bit different playing against mutas. That's probably going to have to be a different video for me to talk about, which actually, come to think of it, I think I do have a replay for that. So stay tuned for that. I just thought of it right now. So I do have a replay for that specifically. But against unit compositions don't involve mutas, you can do multi-prong drops. We see pros do this literally all the time. If you can't really do this, that's okay. Don't worry about using both medevacs at the same time. Start with using one, or maybe start with using one double medevac drop, let's say, and just do what I said earlier, which is to clear the creep in the middle, or wherever you plan on attacking, or wherever is the most prominent. Feel free to do that. And then if you want to start kind of pushing yourself, add an extra medevac. Or if you did a really good job of clearing the creep, you can sort of shift the pressure to start killing or start dropping main bases, for example. So on this particular map, it's really nice, right? You can kind of go around here, off to the back, and and then drop over here, and these spores wouldn't have done anything, right? Similarly, I'm repositioning my units to start canceling bases. I canceled this base because I thought he would take this one. He actually took this one, which means I could have technically rotated my army this way, right? And because I have the medevacs, I could pick up here, boost over here, and then target this base. So you really want to abuse the mobility of the medevacs, but you want to just basically be active on the map to where, you know, maybe you can kill some lings before you pick up. You can kill a couple of roaches, maybe for example in the specific scenario, or just like I said earlier, clearing the creep. Now, while you're doing that, it's extremely important that you're pumping out units, okay? A lot of times, sorry, let me rephrase that. Most of the time, you're going to go 5 racks first, right? You're going to go 5 racks into a 4th command center, right? In this particular case, I actually went 8 racks first, and then you'll see me drop the 4th. So when it comes to going from mid-game to late game, or maybe mid-game in general, you basically have those two options. You could either go up to 8 barracks, so you dump 3 extra, and just kind of try to win on 2-2. Which somebody who did this a lot was Oliveira in the recent DreamHack Dallas. So if you want to watch somebody do that even better than me, doing that, go ahead and check that out. Really good games right there. You get a really good example of what I'm talking about. You could do those kinds of pushes to end the game as soon as you can, or either maybe if you're really behind, maybe you didn't macro very well, so you feel like you can't do a good push, or maybe you just feel like playing a later game. Then you can go for the 4th first. So you go 5 racks, maybe 2 factories into a 4th base, and then after the 4th base, you're going to add your 6th, 7th, and 8th barracks, and then that'll complete your kind of early late game production facilities. Okay, so basically, just to summarize, or to make it simpler, if you're not adding these extra barracks that I did, your 6th, 7th, and 8th, you're adding a 4th. Okay, now you can still max out at 10 minutes, become close to maxing out at 10 minutes if you do that anyway, so it still works out. The nice thing about going 8 racks like this is that as soon as I go across the map and I start losing units, I can immediately replace those units. Whereas if I only have 5 barracks in production, I can't really replace the units quickly. And that might be a bit of an issue if the Zerg has a lot of hatcheries, right? A lot of macro hatches or just bases in general, then that might be a little bit of a problem. So I just wanted to explain that. So I'm gearing up for that push. And so when you're doing this multi-prong and you're clearing creep and you're maybe training a few units and stuff like that, really make sure that the real focus of this should be on your macro, okay? Hitting those early game production cycles so that you can hit a really nice push. This example here, if you've been paying attention, I actually got supply blocked 2 times. I got supply blocked at 165 and 181 for a little bit. If I didn't hit those 2 blocks, I could actually have hit 200 already, okay? Which means I would have hit 200 at 9 minutes. Whereas with 5 racks, you're probably gonna hit 200 closer to 10 minutes, okay? So you have that 1 minute of extra time. Now my 2-2 hasn't finished yet, but I do have a very good supply, and I feel very good about my unit composition, okay? This is where you sort of start to make judgments depending on the game that you're playing. So an example here is that my opponent doesn't have any +1 upgrade, +1 attack upgrades, either melee or range. They only have armor. So I already have an upgrade advantage. But also, my army is just huge, right? Like I have 3 tanks, right? And as I'm getting ready to go across the map, I'm paying attention to what my opponent has. Okay, so from what I've seen so far, it's only been roaches, okay? And Bios is going to scale way better than roaches do as you get closer to maxing out. So 200 bio versus 200 roach, 200 bio is going to win. It's just better. It's going to scale better. Okay, it's a better composition in general, right? So when I was doing this and I saw, okay, this guy's already getting a hive, okay, and I guess I didn't see that because I just checked my vision and that wasn't the case. But roach tech is not really great when I'm maxed out on bio. So I'm going to do the smart thing and I'm just going to attack. Okay, and this is where I sort of go down the middle here. Okay, so basically the whole game, I pretty much used 2 groups of medevacs to clear creep, put pressure on the side, or even trade against a couple of units while I'm maxing out to do this push. Okay, and I'm just making sure that I'm keeping an eye on my opponent's composition so that I don't get caught off guard by any sudden switches, okay? A good example of this is when somebody goes for a very quick hive into lurkers. I'm sure if you're Diamond Plus, you've experienced this a lot. A lot of times when there's not enough pressure in the mid game or a Zerg feels like you're not going to attack them anytime soon, they will try to rush the hive tech. Okay, and that's when you get those really fast lurkers where you max out on this bio, you feel good, you're gonna go across the map, and maybe they're not maxed out yet, but they have 5 lurkers, and then suddenly you feel like your army is really not that great, even though you're maxed out. To avoid that scenario, you really want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on the enemy unit comp and their tech, okay? And the way you can do the tech part is just by making sure that you're actually checking to see if they have a hive or not, which is something that I should have done here, but I didn't, because I'm bad. So don't do what I do, okay? At least not that part. Yeah, and I'm just going to go down the middle of the map here, and I'm going to start putting pressure, and he's literally morphing Banelings. He's getting an Ultraless Cavern at like 9 minutes, dude. And I just hit him with this push, and that was it. I'm building a Ghost Academy behind this. I'm going to drop a 4th base here. And so I kind of really just caught him with his pants down, right? Like, I had a really good strong timing. They weren't really expecting it. And I have the perfect composition for it, right? I have Marauders to buffer, right, against the Roach Ravager and the Banelings. So it wasn't like I showed up with the wrong unit comp either. Or, I showed up with Widow Mines. I made sure that I was going to keep building tanks because they were playing Roaches. So this is just one example of this scenario of the mid game. If your goal is to win in the mid game, this is the simplest way to go about it. And I don't think you need to do anything crazy involving multi-prong, crazy multi-prong where you're like kiting 2 groups of units. You don't even have to do that. You don't need to be stimming into a base and obliterating a mineral line. Obviously that's nice, but you don't really need to do that either. Just make sure that you're keeping an eye on the unit composition. You're clearing the creep from the angle that you want to attack. You're maxing out on the correct army against what you're playing against. And then making sure you're not getting caught off guard by any tech switches, okay? Micro positioning of engagements, stuff like that. That's stuff that you're just going to learn through practice, right? You can either watch pros do it, see where they position their siege tanks and stuff like that. Or you're going to take a fight and you're going to be like, well, I shouldn't have fought there. It doesn't make any sense. And then you're not going to do it again. Other simple micro tricks like pulling your Marines behind your Marauders and against Banelings and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff you will learn through practice or maybe watching pros or even through coaching. So yeah. Otherwise, that's it for this video. We'll be following up with some other mid-game scenarios. So we'll do mid-game Utas, maybe a little bit more of a standard composition, which is like Ling Bane Hydra. And then we'll pivot to late game. It's just going to be, unfortunately, it just has to be multiple videos to really encompass as much as possible, because obviously people are going to play different scenarios. So this is like, I think this is the best way to go about absorbing all those different scenarios, just having separate videos. And then we'll move along to other matchups, or I might even just do them at the same time to just save a little bit more time on that or not take too long to upload all the videos. Otherwise, if you have any questions about what we talked about in this video, feel free to drop a comment. I'll go ahead and answer. I'm not afraid about asking questions at all. Feel free to provide some input or ask questions. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.